No one knew the real reason, until now. Princess Anne has finally revealed why Prince Philip chose solitude at Wood Farm instead of living with Queen Elizabeth. Behind the gates of Sandringham, a quiet truth unfolded, one that redefines love, legacy, and the man who stood beside the throne for decades. A royal departure caught everyone off guard. It began as a quiet announcement in May 2017, but the ripples it caused shook even the most devoted royal watchers. At 95, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, formally retired from public duties. That much wasn't shocking. Age had finally caught up with the ever-active consort. But what stunned the nation and puzzled insiders was the second part of the move. He would no longer live at Buckingham Palace. Instead, he'd be relocating to Wood Farm, a modest home on the Sandringham estate, far from the bustling heart of the monarchy. To many, it seemed unthinkable. After more than 70 years of marriage to Queen Elizabeth II, always appearing united in public, always present side by side, why would he choose distance now? Was something wrong? Had there been a falling out? The palace offered brief reassurances. They said the couple would still see each other regularly, and that it was a decision made with mutual understanding. But the mystery lingered. Why did Philip, the ever-loyal consort, decide to live apart from his queen in his final years? The media, unsurprisingly, filled in the blanks with speculation. Some pointed to health concerns, others to personal preferences. A few even dared to hint at deeper rifts within the royal household. But for years, no one within the family said anything publicly. Silence reigned until now. And when the truth finally emerged, it wasn't what anyone expected. Anne speaks out. The truth finally revealed. Years of silence ended with a single voice. Princess Anne. Known for her directness and deeply rooted loyalty to both her parents, Anne stepped forward to reveal what had truly been behind her father's decision. In a rare, emotionally grounded moment, she spoke not as a working royal, but as a daughter. Her words held clarity and calm. It was simply what he needed. She confirmed what many had suspected, but few dared to say out loud. Prince Philip had chosen solitude not out of discontent or conflict, but out of a deep desire for peace, privacy, and personal space. She said he had spent a lifetime supporting the Queen in a role that demanded total self-sacrifice. Now, finally free of official duties, he simply wanted to live quietly on his own terms. Backing her account, both Prince Charles and Prince Andrew echoed their sister's sentiments. They described it not as an estrangement, but as an act of self-care. A chance for Philip to reclaim a bit of independence after decades in a ceremonial shadow. This wasn't a breakdown of marriage. It was the evolution of it. A love that had endured, now stretching to allow personal space and serenity. The public, long fed on speculative headlines, finally saw the full picture. Prince Philip had not walked away from his wife. He had stepped into a well-earned retirement. And Princess Anne's words didn't just explain the past. They reshaped it. Suddenly, everything made sense. The burden of duty for over 6 decades. To fully understand why Prince Philip made the choice he did, you have to look back, far back. When he married Princess Elizabeth in 1947, he gave up much more than most realize. Born into Greek and Danish royalty, he abandoned his foreign titles, his naval career, and even his religion to be part of the British royal family. From the start, he walked a step behind. When Elizabeth became queen in 1952, his transformation was complete. His ambitions in the Royal Navy ended. His role became clear: support, not lead. And he played that part impeccably, modernizing palace procedures, supporting thousands of engagements, traveling the world on behalf of the crown. But all of it came at a personal cost. Philip was a man of action, used to command and adventure. Yet, for more than 6 decades, he lived in the shadow of a throne he could never ascend. It was a unique form of pressure, one that few understood. He was neither king nor private citizen. He was the ever-smiling, ever-silent consort, always present, but rarely at the center. That kind of long-term duty can wear down even the strongest. And as he approached his 90s, it became clear that he needed something more. A space to be himself, without schedule, without staff, without ceremony. His retreat wasn't an escape from responsibility. It was the reward for a lifetime of service. A final chapter, not of withdrawal, but of personal restoration. Wood Farm, a real retreat. Set among the quiet woods and rolling fields of Sandringham lies Wood Farm, a quaint, 5-bedroom home with none of the grandeur of royal palaces. But for Prince Philip, it was paradise. No servants in every room, no official photographers, no need for formal dress. At Wood Farm, he could live as a man, not a title. There, he took up painting, reading, and his beloved carriage driving, activities that fed his mind and spirit. He didn't disappear. He kept up with the Queen via regular phone calls and cherished weekend visits. But he had freedom. He could set his own schedule, wear what he liked, and even cook his own meals. The contrast between Buckingham Palace and Wood Farm couldn't be more stark. In London, Philip was prince, duke, and consort. In Norfolk, he was simply Philip. And it was in this quiet simplicity that he seemed most himself. Friends who visited remarked on how relaxed he became. His wit remained sharp, his posture proud, but the stress was gone. Wood Farm wasn't just a house, it was a symbol of earned rest, of quiet legacy, of a man who had given everything to a role, and finally took something back for himself. Life in the palace versus Wood Farm. The decision to live at Wood Farm highlighted the stark difference between palace life and private life. Inside Buckingham Palace, there are layers of tradition, protocol, and expectation. Every hallway echoes with history. Every room is a stage. Even retired, Prince Philip would still be seen as a senior royal figure there, expected to maintain a certain image, to participate in daily routines designed not for comfort, but for legacy. But at Wood Farm, none of that applied. There were no flashing cameras, no scheduled tea times, no rehearsed receptions. Instead, Philip had quiet mornings, solitary walks, and the freedom to decide what came next. His only company, often, was the local staff, few in number, selected for their discretion and familiarity. For a man who spent most of his life under constant observation, this shift was monumental. It wasn't about avoiding the Queen, it was about avoiding the show. The monarchy, after all, is a performance. Philip, after 70 years, had finally exited stage left. This contrast reveals the ultimate truth of his later years, that a life of service must, at some point, give way to self-preservation. And in choosing peace, Philip reminded the world that even the most dutiful lives are still human at the core. A marriage built on love and limits. Their connection was forged through correspondence and shared moments long before royal obligations took hold. Elizabeth Brady, victorious daughter of a wartime monarch, found in Philip not just a partner, but a mirror, someone who matched her resolve and wit. He, in turn, chose to relinquish his Greek and Danish titles, embrace a new faith, and stand behind her in name and spirit. Over time, though, the same devotion that guided them created a unique tension. Philip had been groomed to lead, first in naval schools, then at sea. Yet, by marrying Elizabeth, he committed to a lifetime walking 2 steps behind the throne. He had championed changes, the televised coronation, lightened palace protocol, quiet modernization, but each was an echo of a will he could never fully wield. Privately, the Duke acknowledged his own sacrifices. His naval career, once full of promise, was shelved for public duty. His ambition became service. His steps fell in rhythm with tradition. While he carried himself with humor and grace, those closest knew he craved autonomy. By the time he approached his 90s, his silence spoke volumes. So much had been offered to the crown, and now something needed to be taken back. His departure to Wood Farm didn't signal a fracture. It marked a shift. Love remained. Respect continued. But so did the need for self. That delicate balance between shared purpose and individual peace defined the final years of their union. Proof that enduring relationships can evolve rather than end. Philip's final sunset years. Retirement at 96 allowed the Duke of Edinburgh to reclaim life on his own terms. August 2017 became a landmark, not for pomp, but for quiet transition. His final public role was with the Royal Marines, an echo of his naval youth and decades of public service. At Wood Farm, he found sanctuary. No red boxes, no court aids, just morning carriage rides, watercolor brushes, and an open Sandringham sky. He spent hours painting landscapes, reading historical tomes, and enjoying simple meals in solitude. Even when a minor car crash in 2019 prompted him to surrender his license, he accepted the change calmly, with characteristic humility. During the atmosphere of the pandemic, HMS Bubble returned him temporarily to Windsor Castle, allowing him moments with the Queen in a quieter setting. But the pull of Wood Farm remained strong. There, away from royal expectation, he lived fully, surrounded by peace and routine. His final years stood as a testament to a life lived on his terms. He had served tirelessly, supported a queen, and yet never lost that core. A man defined not by title, but by choice. His sunset years didn't dim. They glowed softly with dignity and quiet intent. Anne and Philip's special bond. From childhood on, Princess Anne was her father's confidant. His sharp intelligence and her fierce spirit mirrored each other. They shared humor, honesty, and a devotion to authenticity that set them apart in the royal frame. That bond meant Anne knew the Duke's heart well. She watched him navigate public roles with humor, yet sensed the yearning beneath. Autonomy. When he sought solitude, she understood it not as retreat, but reclamation. Her support never wavered. Instead, it strengthened his decision and gave his choice voice. By publicly acknowledging his need for space, Anne did more than explain. It honored his legacy. Her words were not charity, but companionship. She did not reveal scandal or sorrow. She simply offered truth. That honesty reshaped public perception, turning whispers into empathy. Their close relationship gave the move to Wood Farm meaning beyond privacy. It became a shared moment of understanding between father and daughter. Unspoken values manifested openly. Ripples through the royal family. When Prince Philip's move to Wood Farm became public knowledge, its ripple effect reached far beyond the green pastures of Norfolk. It didn't just mark a shift in his personal life, it shifted the rhythm of the entire monarchy. The institution, known for its carefully choreographed appearances and immovable traditions, found itself at a crossroads, one initiated by a man who had served it faithfully for more than 7 decades. It wasn't long before Prince Charles and Prince Andrew stepped forward to publicly support their father's decision. Charles, now king, called the retreat a deeply personal and long-deserved choice. Andrew echoed his brother, saying, "He gave everything to duty. Now he deserves to define his own days." Their endorsements helped recast the narrative, transforming the story from whispers of marital strain into a dignified account of personal agency. This shift was more than a matter of perception. It was a quiet precedent. It told the world something rarely acknowledged in royal circles, that even those born into tradition are allowed to carve out moments of independence, that a title doesn't have to come at the cost of peace. For younger royals, especially William, Catherine, Harry, and Meghan, Philip's move became a living lesson. It reminded them that authentic service doesn't demand the erasure of self. The gesture didn't go unnoticed within palace walls. Courtiers, aides, even the Queen's closest circle began to reflect on what had always been taken for granted. That unwavering duty didn't always mean proximity. In honoring Philip's wish to spend his twilight years away from constant ceremony, the family made a powerful, if silent, declaration that emotional well-being now matters within royal life. This perspective wasn't just symbolic, it was transformative. It allowed future generations to see royal life not as a gilded cage, but as a path that can flex with human needs. Even Princess Anne, known for her traditional views and stoic discipline, later admitted that her father's choice reflected the wisdom of a man who knew when it was time to let go of the noise. Within the family, it became a shift in tone. Less rigidity, more compassion. Less pretense, more presence. They didn't just let Philip step back, they protected his space. And in doing so, they added a new dimension to their legacy, one where personal peace is valued as highly as public image. By supporting Prince Philip's retreat, the royals didn't weaken the crown, they made it stronger. They demonstrated that even in an age of tradition, evolution is not only possible, it's essential. And so the ripples continued. Subtle, mild, steady, but shaping a new tide for the monarchy. Public reaction and legacy. Reappraisal. Once the full story behind Prince Philip's move to Wood Farm came to light, thanks largely to Princess Anne's rare, heartfelt confession, the public's perception shifted dramatically. What had once been a murmur of confusion or quiet suspicion turned into a wave of empathy. The headlines softened. The narratives changed. Suddenly, this wasn't about royal separation or scandal. It was about something deeply human, the right to rest, reflect, and reclaim peace after a lifetime of service. Social media lit up not with gossip, but with gratitude. Thousands shared their own stories of aging parents seeking solitude, of retirees carving out space for themselves, of relationships that thrived not because of constant proximity, but because of mutual respect. "He earned that peace," wrote one user. Another simply stated, "Even a prince deserves privacy." Historians, too, began to reassess Philip's life through a new lens. No longer just the stoic figure 2 steps behind the Queen, He was now celebrated as a modernizer in his own right. It was Philip who pushed for the televised coronation in 1953, forever changing how the world viewed monarchy. It was Philip who led efforts to reform palace operations, streamline royal charities, and mentor younger royals behind the scenes. These weren't side notes, they were central to the evolution of the modern royal family. And then came his move to Wood Farm. What once felt like quiet retreat now stood as a powerful act of renewal. He wasn't fleeing responsibility, he was reclaiming his identity. In a world where duty can easily blur into sacrifice, Philip showed that one can still serve with strength while protecting personal boundaries. His choice rippled beyond the palace gates. People began seeing him not just as the Queen's consort, but as a man who taught the world something invaluable about aging with grace. He reminded us all that legacy isn't built solely on public appearances. It's also shaped in quiet decisions, made behind closed doors, rooted in authenticity. Even in stepping back, he stood tall, read a tribute in a Sunday paper. The words struck a chord across generations. Young people admired his resolve. Older viewers respected his wisdom. The idea that someone so bound by tradition could still carve out personal freedom became a lesson in evolving nobility. Prince Philip's final years weren't a retreat. They were a redefinition, a testament to love that transcends space, a reminder that service includes self-respect, and above all, a quiet declaration that sometimes the most enduring legacy is choosing peace and having the courage to live it fully, right to the end. Why Wood Farm was ideal. Nestled deep within the serene expanse of the Sandringham estate, Wood Farm was never meant to be grand. It lacked the gold ceilings of Buckingham Palace or the commanding spires of Windsor Castle. But for Prince Philip, it was perfect. It was his. After more than 7 decades spent in the relentless rhythm of public duty, smiling, standing, speaking, it offered him something rare: freedom. Its modest brick walls, sunlit windows, and surrounding open fields gave the Duke of Edinburgh something he hadn't had in years: privacy without pressure. No red boxes stacked high with paperwork, no constant stream of footmen or forced conversations, just silence, fresh air, and the hum of bees outside the kitchen window. Inside, he could cook his own breakfast, read undisturbed for hours, or tinker with old gadgets. Most days began with carriage driving, a beloved pastime that kept him active and grounded. Wood Farm wasn't exile, it was liberation. It didn't signal distance from the Queen. It was Philip's quiet declaration of independence after decades of living in ceremonial shadow. This wasn't about turning away from royal responsibility. It was about returning to self. As Anne would later reveal, this decision wasn't made in frustration or sadness. It was made in clarity. At Wood Farm, he wasn't the Duke or consort. He was simply Philip, a man who had given nearly everything to service and, in his final years, wanted space to remember who he was outside of it. And in that small farmhouse, surrounded by trees and memory, he found peace. A royal couple that endured. Despite the change in living arrangements, Philip and Elizabeth's bond never weakened. If anything, it deepened in new, quieter ways. While their bedrooms were now in different buildings, their conversations continued: daily phone calls, Zoom meetings during lockdown, and handwritten notes slipped through staff. They remained each other's anchors, even if their sails caught different winds. When major family events called, weddings, christenings, anniversaries, Philip returned to her side. He never shirked his role, but he also no longer lived within the constraints of royal routine. It was an unspoken agreement between them: space without separation, love without obligation. Elizabeth never resisted his retreat. Instead, she supported it. She knew the decades he had sacrificed, the roles he had reshaped for her sake. This new chapter wasn't an ending. It was a continuation, one rooted in mutual respect. On his birthday, she sent gifts. During Christmas, she'd visit Wood Farm and bring the family. Their connection had always been more than physical. It was spiritual, enduring. And when the time came in April 2021, she was right there beside him, holding his hand as he passed. Their last. Chapter wasn't lived under the same roof, but it was written with unwavering loyalty and enduring affection. They had lived together, grown apart, and grown closer, all without ever letting go. A lesson in balance and legacy. Prince Philip's decision to retire to Wood Farm may one day be studied as one of the most dignified exits in royal history. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was thoughtful, measured, and entirely his own. In a life spent navigating duty, tradition, and expectation, this final act was a rare, powerful assertion of autonomy. He didn't abandon the monarchy. He redefined his role within it. By stepping away from the spotlight but staying emotionally connected, Philip showed that service evolves. It's not about constant presence, it's about consistent purpose. His daughter, Princess Anne, helped the world understand this with her recent revelations. Her words reframed the narrative from one of estrangement to one of empowerment. For royals today, William, Kate, even future generations, Philip's final years offer a model: how to age gracefully within public life, how to love deeply without always being near, and how to preserve oneself while still honoring one's oath. And that's the core of his legacy. Beyond his naval service, public speeches, and modernizing the monarchy, his final act was about humanity, about rest, about reclaiming identity. At Wood Farm, he left behind titles at the door and lived as the man he had once been, before the crown. In doing so, he taught the monarchy and the world that even a life of duty must make space for peace, that even princes need a quiet corner to call their own. And perhaps that's the greatest legacy of all. Prince Philip's decision wasn't a retreat. It was a statement. Princess Anne's revelation has pulled back the curtain on a royal love story rooted in space, respect, and endurance. As the monarchy marches on, his final chapter reminds us all: duty and independence can exist side by side, even in Buckingham Palace.